Gentlemen, happy Friday and welcome to our draft grades video. So it's been almost a week, right? Just less than a week since we had our draft. You've all had plenty of opportunity then to sit back, look at your teams, look at what could have been, the direction that you went, that you didn't go, kind of weigh it out. And I would imagine that most of you are pretty happy with how it turned out. Looking at your teams and your hope for the upcoming season. Well, we're going to talk about that today. So we're going to go through and give some draft grades while looking at really your whole team kind of in whole. Because, right, your keepers played a big part into your draft, with who you drafted around them, to help piece together, what we would call a good team, perfect team, or a not so great team, in which we'll talk about here. So we will not discuss playoff predictions. We will save that actually for the next video. I'm already kind of toying with what that video will look like. I think we'll discuss the playoff breakdown based on the draft, based on maybe some team projections for the first couple of weeks and look at that. And then we're also going to make a few bold predictions on the year. I think we'll tie that into the next video. But for this video then, we're strictly going to look at the draft and kind of review it. So we're going to break it down into three categories. So, of course, there's 12 teams. We're going to break it down into three categories. All that money I spent for that college education really helps right here. So if I know 12 teams, three categories, we've got 4 teams in each category. And what are the categories, you ask? Well, here they are. So we've got you rock, meh, and you suck. So 3 categories really saying if you did really, really well, or at least based on my opinion, with the draft, you did well, you rock, average, so-so, meh, and then if I just think you're awful, maybe not awful, but maybe just your team doesn't look as good as it could, and I don't feel like you set yourself up for success based on the draft, then I say, you know what, you suck. So let's get into it. So let's pull up and we'll look at the actual draft, of course. 12 teams. We'll talk about everybody on here. So, of course, as you can see on the screen here, we've got the draft board. And we'll start, we'll save the 4 best teams for the end. So we'll start with the average teams. These are the 4 teams that I think just did okay. Might make the playoffs. Probably a couple of teams maybe from here may make the playoffs. But for the most part, I didn't think were all that exciting. The number 1 team that I have on here is Sean. And Sean, really, it could go 2 ways, right? I think we're all going to look back probably, mid to the end of this year and really wonder, did he make the right decision? He had the number 1 pick. And instead of going CeeDee Lamb or Tyreek Hill or even Barkley, he chose Garrett Wilson. And felt pretty strong about his pick and pretty sure about himself. And I think the rest of us are kind of like, wait and see. Let's see how that turns out. And then see if we give him a bunch of crap about it later on when those he could have drafted went off for the season. Or if Sean knew it before anybody else and was the smartest man in the room and picked Wilson, and he ended up being the top receiver for the year. So we'll wait and see. But outside of that, the rest of his team, I know we went for young. I know we went for keepers for next year. Taking some of that into consideration, but really with the draft grades, I'm kind of looking at, for the most part, just this year. I just put his team in that mid-pack and say, meh. The number 2 team I have that I say their team is meh is Jeremy. Jeremy, again, had Bijan Robinson that he was able to keep, and he had some pretty decent keepers. But as I look at his team, again, it's just strictly my opinion. He has for his, for a quarterback, Anthony Richardson, and I get it. It probably won't be a starter because he has Jordan Love. But I think he picked him really early based on having a starting quarterback already. He went with Pickens, which I know Pickens wasn't kept this year. It's just, I don't know. He's one of those, he could have some really good games, but then he definitely has the games where he gets all frustrated and mad and they go away from him. And 4th round, that's huge right there. And then just kind of looking at his running backs. I know he's got a lot of them. And he's got Bijan. But then, Aaron Jones, I don't know. I thought about, wanting him if he became available at my pick. He wasn't, so I didn't have to decide that. So we'll see how that turns out in Minnesota. And then he's got a lot of, C tier type running backs on his team. So with all of that, I'm giving him that middle grade. The third team that I say kind of in the middle here, the middle four teams, is Josh. Now, Josh, of course, has Christian McCaffrey, so that does set him up. And really for that kind of top part of the draft, he had McCaffrey as a keeper, Waddle, Swift, no, not too bad. But I kind of look beyond that. I look at his quarterback. Of course, he went with Trevor Lawrence for his starting quarterback, because I don't believe then he has Baker Mayfield. So can't say I'm excited about either of those two options for this year. And then just really overall his wide receiver core. I mean, if you look at it, Waddle, Higgins, and Coleman, sure, there's potential there, but it's not the strongest wide receiver core at all, in the draft. So that's just kind of why I say he's, the meh tier. And the last of the four that's in the middle would be Dez. Couple of reasons. One, Dez had some great keepers, but Harrison in the second round, I don't know. I'm just not sold on the rookies, and we'll talk about it as we get to Ian's team too on, being drafted that high. It's kind of an unknown. You don't know. They have the potential, right? They could be, Harrison could be the top receiver in the league. I just don't think so, especially in that Arizona offense, but we'll see. He's got Tua as his starting quarterback. Yep, Cousins as a backup quarterback. And then for the third reason that I just put his team as meh, his team name. If you guys saw it, he changed it. He changed it to Hawk Tua. He had to be the guy to do it. I'm pretty sure when I was looking up team names for my team, the number one thing that came up on all the pages that I went was don't do it. Don't be that guy. Don't call your team Hawk Tua, even if you have Tua. But he did it anyways. Yeah, so that just ties into everything else that I see with this team. And I say he's in that middle tier. So moving on then, we've got four teams that I say fit into the bottom category called You Suck. The number one team in that is Clint. Clint, I put you in this category for a couple of reasons. Now, again, you had, some decent keepers, and you drafted, running back in the first round. But Nick Chubb, someone was going to take him, right? During that area, that's kind of where he's going. I just don't know. I know he's not going to play for a little while. Is he going to come back? Is he going to be worth it when he does play? But you gave up a 6th-round pick for him. And then your wide receivers. You got Evans, Metcalf, and kind of, down as you go further down. I don't think you had a keeper any further down than that. No, Palmer, Thielen. Yeah, just, again, not the strongest core on that. So I feel that's going to be a disadvantage for you, and I guess we'll see how the season turns out. But I'm putting you in the category as You Suck. The next team that I think sucks, John. John decided not to keep CD. And so who does he take? He could have kept CD as the 12th pick. Instead, though, he takes Travis Kelce. If you just kind of weigh those two and see which one would have been the better option, I, of course, feel that keeping CD Lamb there would have been better than what you're going to get from Travis Kelce, but I guess only time will tell. And then since he didn't keep CD, I really look at his wide receivers. Olave, I don't know, could have a good year. It's just, the team that he's on, the quarterback that he has. I think he's really going to struggle with wide receiver throughout the whole year based on who he has on his team. I know he's got some youth on there. It's got some potential, but I just don't feel strong about his wide receiver core. And then, he's putting a lot of weight on Kelce, so we'll see how that works out. So that was the second team in the You Suck category. The third team, Ian. Again, we talked about the rookie wide receivers, and he has neighbors, and I just don't know, what that's going to look like. Again, he's on the Giants. I actually am. The rest of his wide receivers, yeah, he's got St. Brown, but then, Keenan Allen, which, again, in a new offense, on a new team, we'll kind of wait and see. His running backs, although he took Josh Jacobs in the first round, which is decently strong, everybody else is kind of pieced together. Pollard, Williams, Spears, and I don't think he kept anybody later round. Nope. So I guess, again, it's one of those. We'll see how it turns out, but I just don't feel like it's going to be a strong core for that team. So Ian's the third team in that category. And the fourth team, he actually said it himself, I think changing his team name to who needs running backs or whatever. His name he came up with, and that's Adam. And it's for the exact reason of what he said. His running back core, he took him late. He kind of did the same options, the same philosophy that I did with three wide receivers at the beginning, but then instead of trying to go running back, at least taking the best of what was available, he decided to skip out on that and then take two tight ends, kind of back-to-back, or at least back-to-back rounds. You're looking at it, they were only a few picks away from each other, so kind of a question mark on there. Now, granted, maybe he plans on starting one of them in the flex position because he has big plans or big thoughts of what both of them can do. And again, it's early in the season. No games have been played yet. It's a possibility, but I don't like his running back core. He doesn't either. So that's why I put him in the category of the bottom four as you suck. So to recap, the teams that I say are meh, Sean, Jeremy, Josh, Dez. The teams that I think are even worse than that, where they suck, Clint, John, Ian, and Adam. That, of course, then leaves 4 teams left. If your name wasn't called, congratulations. I consider you having a very successful draft, and I say that you rock. The number 1 team in this category I put is Jay. Jay, again, for a couple of reasons. One, he got CeeDee Lamb. And then, of course, the deal wasn't done at that time frame. Perhaps that's why I think 3 of us passed on him. Looking back, that could have been a huge mistake, especially now that he's got his deal done. And hopefully that he gets into shape and doesn't get hurt. But that, I think, right there with the 7th pick could be the steal of the draft. He took a couple people that I think was smart. Kirk, just if it's anything like last year in that offense, it just seems like he got the ball thrown to him a ton. He took Montgomery, which again, there should be plenty of carries in that offense. He kept Lamar. I like his team. I do. And of course, the second half of, maybe not the entire second half, but a good chunk of the back part of the draft was auto-drafted. And if you actually look at his matchups, he's actually projected to win the majority of, I think his first 3 matchups for sure. He has more points projected than the team he's playing against. So that's the number 1 team in the You Rock category. Number 2, Jake. I like Jake's running back core. I think I said that before when he had his keepers because he kept Taylor and Pacheco. I think now he's adding ETN to that mix. I like it. I know Jake commented that he doesn't love his wide receiver core. We'll see how that goes. I think with all 3 of those running backs, they get the ball thrown to them some, so it could be helpful. And Jake has Mahomes. So I think the number 1 quarterback taken off the board. Yes, that of course wasn't a keeper. So I think Jake's very strong with running back and quarterback. He can piece together the wide receiver core, perhaps the tight end core. So we'll see how that goes. But I think he's got a strong enough running back and quarterback combination on his team, I think, for success for this year. So Jake is the number 2 team under the You Rock category. Number 3. Myself, I know. I said my keepers suck, and they did. I feel I made up for it in the draft. Time will tell. Again, I did the same philosophy as Adam. Went 3 wide receivers to start off with one of them being a keeper. Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, Cooper Kupp, they could have huge weeks. At any given time, I could blow everybody away in points. Tyreek's already hurt. Kupp always gets hurt. So we know the downside of having those 3, that it may not turn out the way that I'm hoping for. But, we'll see how that plays out. I then, tried not to panic and went back your best running backs available and took the next 4 out of the next 5 picks as running backs. Tight end, I don't know, for Dallas. Hopefully they throw the ball a ton. I don't think they're excited about their running backs at all this year, so hopefully that just means they're going to chuck the ball around a ton, and Ferguson will at least get his share. So I like my team. I like my team coming out of the draft. I still don't feel like I drafted youth I'm not looking for next year for the keepers. It means I'm going to have to be very active on the waiver wire. But at least for this year, I feel good the first couple of matchups, I'm favored to win. So that's 3, and then we have one team left that we haven't spoke about yet, and that is Will. I like Will's team. I like the direction he went. He went, Barkley, kept Henry, strong running back core, has Mostert, which again should get enough opportunities if he can stay healthy. He has Burrow, got Burrow very late as a quarterback. So again, if he's back and healthy, playing at the level that he was a couple of years ago, that should be a great quarterback for Will that he got kind of late in the draft. And then I also feel like he went young. A good group of the young guys on his team that is setting him up actually for next year as well. So I think that's huge for Will there. So congrats, Will. I really like your team as well, and I put you in that category. So the last 4 that make the You Rock category: Jay, Jake, myself, and Will. So that is the breakdown then of the 3 categories that we have. I'm sure some of you loved what I had to say about your draft. Some of you maybe don't love it but agree with it. And I'm sure there's probably at least 4 of you that completely disagree with what I just said. So, but again, it's before the season. Nothing started yet. We're just looking at it on paper. Week 1, week 2 will probably show, really how well we draft and what that looks like. And kind of seeing how everything unfolds. So that's it for this video. Like I said, expect another video here in a couple of days. We'll go over then the playoff predictions and some bold predictions on the year. So look forward to that. So, all right, everyone. Thank you. We'll talk soon.